Welcome to TOOKY'S Sidebar, a book club for adoptive fathers. I'm David.
I'm Gabe, Hebophile's biggest defender.
And I'm Capitalissimo, considering a reread of More Cute Teens for Old Men.
We're back again today to discuss a recent article in Vanity Fair, of all places, by Vincenzo Barney. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Article titled, Cormac McCarthy's Secret Muse Breaks Her Silence.
Actually, I think it's pronounced Barney, because he's Italian.
Okay. He writes like a burger, but...
he really writes like a burger.
Yeah, he's a little Cormac pilled. You could tell going into this. And this is maybe our first and only time being early or on time with something new coming out.
So topical.
Spiritual sequel to Dawson, our Dawson episode, which was very well received.
Very well seethed.
Molded. And it has grown, unlike Mr. Dawson's hair, who, by the way, Dawson, for those that saw that one, has completely vanished. His podcast is now an abandoned ruin. And now we stand ready to salt the earth on another author's career, a much more prestigious author's career, Mr. Cormac McCarthy. And I shared this article with you guys earlier today, and we've all read through it. We'll go through, talk through the contents of the article itself, talk about a couple, I guess, analytical lenses we're viewing it through. But before we jump in, guys, I mean, what is this article in like 10 seconds or less for someone that just clicked on this and maybe heard this was a thing?
Cormac McCarthy had, for 47 years, a secret consort named Augusta Britt, who at the age of 16 met a, 42-year-old Cormac McCarthy.
And she was basically his Beatrice to his Dante. And it feels like, you know what she was to him, basically? So they met on a side of a pool on a motel. It literally is like
Lolita.
It's Midwest emo core. Right, she is his, like, he's Donnie Darko, and she's the bitch that dies because of Frank's car driving. Like, in a lot of ways, fundamentally, she basically is his manic pixie dream girl. This fucker got a manic pixie dream girl GF for his entire life as a muse.
Yeah, he kind of stone colded her though. Like he bodied her by the end, which I guess we'll get into. That's like the summary for sure. Cormac McCarthy dated a extremely young girl when he was an older man, and they had a very long running relationship. That's all you wanted to know. There you know it. But I mean, let's
absolutely virile eroticos predatory pill right there.
Amen, brother. And for anyone that stumbled on this that hasn't seen other stuff, we are thoroughly McCormick pilled here. We did the precursor to Blood Meridian. We covered that in a two-parter series on Samuel Chamberlain's book My Confession, which inspired Blood Meridian, and now we're back for his sloppy seconds with reviewing the story of Augusta Britt, who is this woman
whose manicness and tendency to turn a phrase and get herself into or have circumstances thrust upon her, no pun intended, also inspired many other things in McCarthy's work.
But getting into it though, can I just say something? Like, the writing style of this article is very high-minded. Like, there was so much, like, the blue of the letter, the blue of her eyes. I was like, my head was spinning sometimes with the floweriness of this description of an interesting scenario. Yeah.
Waking up beneath the covers of a McCarthy book.
It's monsoon season, and lightning bobs and weaves in the corner of your eyes all day like floaters. There are 3 separate storms to the south, delicately wind-tilted on the horizon. Lightning races them in a stitchless thread, and to the north rain shimmers through the sheerest rainbow, stamped perfectly horizontal against the mountains, like the execution line on a document. Mm-hmm. And it's like, bro.
This is Vanity Fair. Have a seat.
Yeah, I mean, he's his prose. Some of his turns of phrase are quite good, in my opinion. But it's like some of it is really overwrought.
It's
like
the volume that does it. You
Yeah.
know, like you can squeeze a few of those in. But you get blue eyes on blue pen, and you get the cataracts of lightning and all of it. All to say that as we summarize it, we'll go go over some of the funny parts here.
Yeah.
But I guess keep that in the back of your mind. Maybe we even call out there's a funny one that we remember as we go.
Yeah,
Well,
he
the
was too busy
closing.
being a prose fag that he literally didn't. His editor didn't like notice like a spelling. Like I just posted it on the pod planning. Like there's literally multiple points where he grammatically is fucked up. Like he's supposed to be like pigtails are like. Hold on, what did I post? I posted something along the lines like that's one thing I noticed. I'm not the grammar Nazi of all of us, but there's a line he says, whose blonde hair and pigtails some mesmerized Mexican children had never seen before, like a teenage queen.
I think that works.
No, it's
Blonde hair
that
and
does work,
pigtails.
Gabe. You're the ESL one.
No, no. Mesmerized should be before some. Pigtails mesmerized some Mexican girls, not the other that way.
No, because it could be some mesmerized Mexican child. It works
No,
because it's
the clause. You are not reading the clauses in the correct order. The country, the full sentence is: the country was idyllic and paradisically cheap enough for the self-impoverished McCarthy to live like a king, and Britt, whose blonde hair and pigtails some mesmerized Mexican children had never seen before, like a teenage queen. So, it actually works.
Well, I was skim reading at the part where he wanted to eat between her thighs, so I probably just skim read that part.
You were just really focusing on that.
Yeah, that's the.
I mean, that
eating.
scans. That tracks.
All right, let's go through the keynote. There's a lot of keynote in this. In terms of just like major, we're not going to go so necessarily. Let's go sequential in terms of time of their relationship and what's claimed here. So it starts out. Vincenzo is with her. He's met her, and she's recounting this tale. She's now 65 or whatever, and living in the country, and recounting how she was 16 in foster care, and there was like men would like barge into her room, apply like sexual assault, and into her bedroom or bathroom, and so she would just hang out, and she was walking around at 16 with a gun strapped to her hip, like in a holster, and she is reading. What's the book? The Orchard.
She was reading The Orchard Keeper.
Yeah, The Orchard Keeper, which I've never read. And that's the image she gives of how they meet. She's 16. She's reading his book, and she sees him, and she's oh, that's the guy on the back of the book.
That's the guy on the book. She approaches him. They then fuck for 50 years. That's like actually, he does not have
carnal knowledge
relations
for one whole
her
year.
For more than a year, and she is continuously getting beaten and otherwise mistreated in foster care until eventually McCarthy's like, run away with me to Mexico. But just know that if you do this, everything will be different. I'm not asking you for anything. You can always go back, but come with me to Mexico. And so she gets her daddy Dom, and once they arrive finally in Mexico, allegedly dodging the FBI, though Vincenzo says he could not verify that there was ever any pursuit there. They do consummate their relationship, him at 42ish and her at 17.
Yeah, 17
So.
and I think 43. Wait, hold on. There's a line here I wanted to recount. He was 43. She was 17. The image is startling, possibly illegal. At the very least, it raises questions about inappropriate power dynamics and the specter of premeditated grooming. Perish the thought. But not Britt, who would suffer unspeakable violence at the hands of many men in her young life, then or now. Something I wanted to point out, though, apparently the 1976 copy edition of the Orchard Keeper does not feature a picture of the author.
Yeah, well, and it was a beat up paperback, so that Britt says in her own story. So, the other thing is, while Vincenzo does say he was able to independently verify that they did have a long-running relationship from other people, and he did see letters that appeared to be from McCarthy in Augusta Britt's home, and while we will be able to see for sure if there are letters from Britt in the Cormac McCarthy archives, which are opened in fall of 2025, we can't actually fully verify any of these specific stories, right? So there's, she definitely, the way that her words are communicated via Vincenzo are clearly idealized. And so, for example, this ends on, it ends on, like, this article ends on dialogue, where, let's see, Augusta relates this story about a dream she had about McCarthy to Vincenzo, and she says, "I didn't know what to do, and then I woke up." Well, I think you do know what you have to do, I said, turning up my collar. She took a moment, looking at me under that stained glass western sky. "That's right," she smiled, and she thrust her hand out before her the way McCarthy would have. "Walk on." And it's like, was that really like an exchange that happened? Like, she told you a story and you said this like perfect thing and turned your collar up like a cowboy, and then she quoted Cormac McCarthy. Like, is this really, like, or are you idealizing this?
Is this just fantasy?
Yeah.
And she shoots a leather like cowboy belt thrown in the air, like right through the heart of it, or it was another very weird. There's a couple really, really big stretches, it feels like,
where she's a gunslinger.
Yeah, she's suddenly a gunslinger, and this kid is like an semi-orphan. I mean, what do you make of that, Gabe?
Well, the thing with this situation is that this portrays Cormac McCarthy, this whole situation where he is head over heels over his like manic pixie dream girl, cowgirl GF, basically. That's what she is, basically. Like, he literally ditches town. I remember during this entire situation, he's still technically married. He has a son whose name I forget, because he probably forgets his own son's name. He's the loser son no one remembers. He's like a Hemingway's Troon son. Sean? Is it Sean? Whatever. Right? So he literally ditches his wife. He lives the peak. This is what I call the peak boomer mindset, right? Back in the day, you could tastefully leave your wife, go to Mexico with your manic pixie cowgirl GF for a fortnight. And I forgot how long they stayed in Mexico. Cream pie her ass, right blood meridian, and just coast off of that. You literally get paid to do that. That was our version of the Lost Generation of America. This was the peak Americana generation of writing, basically. This is compared. This Bret Easton Ellis's Brat Pack era has nothing on Cormac doing this kind of shit. And the thing with this is, when he actually goes through with her, if you notice, he's very, very much a softie. He is very much a goofball. The way she portrays Cormac through the entirety of this is that he's a sensitive young goofball. He's not like he has no bravado. This man has no aura, basically, for the most part. I mean, she says that he doesn't shoot guns. He doesn't even ride horses. He literally just uses her as like either literally spank material and literary spank material. He uses her to crack his rat and crack his notepad for all intents and purposes.
So that's this story seems to remove any of the maybe any of the mythos that maybe Cormac McCarthy had as this this masculine figure, and sort of say that many of his characters, many of the events that occur in his novels came from this woman. And is that not, is that not subversive in some way? Do you see what I'm getting at with that?
Chad,
the angle of
your
this is
figure.
like, well, actually,
Yeah.
The simp letters. We gotta talk about the simp letters, guys. I had a sexy dream about you all night. I sneaked into my room and I was going to explain you to somebody. I think my mother. Is that possible? Very clean dream. You had a light summer dress.
Our guy.
Yeah, it does. It gets a little it gets a little simpy in a few parts. Maybe that's a little bit more based when you think he's writing to a 17-year-old in many of these letters.
Yeah,
in his 40s.
He's the last great American hepophile. I mean, you think about it. He sees that ripe. It's very funny. His first novel was The Orchard Picker because he picked the fruit right at its peak fertility, and it's just at the peak of ripeness, right in terms of fertility. And notice when he consummates, he's also literary style. Yeah.
I feel like when you say he was a hebophile, you are trying to trap me specifically because I know that that's not right, and no person should know the difference between a hebophile and an ephebophile.
Yeah,
because it's cursed knowledge. It reveals a moral failing on your part. It means that you have spent too much time online talking to people who will willingly engage in age of consent conversations. And I'm going to acknowledge all of that and then also acknowledge my pedantry when I say technically it's ephebophilia. Hebophilia cuts off at 14. He met her when she was 16. Ephebophilia is between the ages of 15 and majority.
Wait, but actually, you know what? We're going to use the leftist frame. You were going to say it? Normal male sex drive. Hebophilia is the left slur against normal male sexuality. I said it.
We all knew it was coming to this, right? That's what this episode is really about.
I'm laying it down. Beatrice, Schopenhauer says it best. Schopenhauer, right? If she was she hit the wall. If she was like 23 or something like that, way past her due date. Like if there would be no inspiration. We would not get all the pretty horses. We would not get Blood Meridian. We would not get Stella Maris? I think it's his last. Stella Maris. Right? We would not get any of this.
Maris.
That's a French flavor. Maurice.
Stella Maurice.
And Schopenhauer talks about this on his frame on women. Lord Byron would not be simping over the beauty of women if it wasn't for his mommy GF mother and his all the women he was banging were hot young teens. I feel like this is the case.
Yeah, those Greek girls, right?
Yeah, exactly. These Greek harlots, these Hellenic harlots, and you see this with McCorncob. Of course, the fucking Reddit author has to bring up, because he brings up all the literary relationships, and then there's aspects to this as well about, Fitzgerald says this about Hemingway, because one Twitter user mentioned Hemingway. This is the opposite of Hemingway, where you peel back the layers. Like he was the immortal young man in his prime. He was always in his prime, but he ended up being a boomer old drunk who would just hang out with like Cuban prostitutes to feel manly all the time. This is the opposite of what Cap said. You have the machismo look at Cormac McCarthy, a man made of stone, of concrete, an ultra masculine figure, who almost Old Testament masculine figure. And you reveal the layers. You comb through the layers, and you see this very, very. I don't call her humor. Her personality seems very weird. I don't want to say Reddit humor or Reddit personality, but her personality is not.
If you do call it Reddit, I think it's probably a limitation in your own vocabulary. Because there's no way this woman has ever been on Reddit.
Comment. That's how that's how they met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should say the author of this is just seems like kind of a random Substacker, actually. Like I went on a Substack. He doesn't seem to have a huge, crazy following or anything. I think he's just someone that connected with her and then kind of got this this direct insight and an actual chance to meet with this woman who's been kind of reclusive. She doesn't seem like she wants the limelight. Cormac even so according to her, like told her to write a book or, you know, do her own thing about it. Doesn't seem like she wants to. So yeah, it seems like I would agree. She's not read it. She seems like she's, you know, more of a literary minded countrywoman, right? She kind of has this, like, you know, spirit of the old West. She seems to embrace.
Well, and her way she remembers McCarthy is very bizarre because her comment on Substack shit talks McCarthy, like, oh, she basically calls him a sellout. You know, he's hanging out with these Santa Fe types. I think she calls him a rich hillbilly or something like that because he has all these car parts in his lawn, but these are all bougie car parts because he's a great mechanic. He likes to be mechanical and such. But he's just kind of a recluse old man, basically. He's hanging out with these, like, Santa Fe hipsters. And it comes off as he's trying to prove how smart he is. Like, he spends his last years of his life basically trying to prove, like, oh, I know astrophysics. I'm just like... It feels like he's butthurt by Pynchon, right? Because Pynchon ends up winning. Pynchon won the great long race. He literally outlasted Cormac McCarthy. Pynchon's still alive. Pynchon, man, he was an engineer. His work is filled with science references. And McCarthy's last work, he tried to prove how, like, intellectual he is. Like, oh, I'm not a humanities major. I'm also a STEM lord. Look at me write about physics. My female protagonist is all about physics. If you read Stella Maris, like, she's also like a mathematician and such. Because he tried to prove himself not only as a humanities dude, but also as a science guy. All right, because it feels like she's portraying him that way. Like, he's very desperate to be liked by these Santa Fe types, which seems bizarre. She reveals him as kind of having this deep, deep regret. And you don't see a lot of McCarthy comes off very weird in this, because we have a handful of interviews with him, and he's obviously kind of playing a character. Like, and all the interviews you watch with McCarthy, he's playing McCarthy. He's playing the man who wrote Blood Meridian, the serious guy, the author of No Country for Old Men. You know, he's kind of, you can tell he's putting on an act. But with her, she just comes off very strange to me. Like, the thing is, when she came to Vanity Fair, or came to his journal, she admits that it comes off because she's terrified of the whole Me Too angle. She says one of the last paragraphs in this piece is literally her being terrified of calling him a groomer. She's like, listen, it wasn't like that. I would literally be dead if it wasn't for Cormac. I'll be dead without him. And it's part of the vibe shift you mentioned earlier, is that the way this is written, like, the author kind of just hand waves it away. Like, oh, yes, it broaches the topic of power dynamics. It broaches the topic of grooming. But he just kind of brings up, it broaches, like, there's discussions to be had about grooming and power dynamics. But he brings it up and doesn't linger on it. He almost exclusively worships the man McCarthy. Almost purely positive readings. He basically portrays him as an outlaw. He says, oh, he kind of liked being an outlaw. I think that was one of the quotes. He liked being chased by the law. It's very romantic. Which is...
Yeah, I mean, but... No victim, no crime. Maybe you could say that. And the Augusta clearly does not feel harmed by this, but then we're sort of in the but does it really affect you sort of territory. And I think I think we just have to say that maybe, unfortunately, sometimes the actual individuals involved,
there's someone they forgot to ask. Is that what you're saying, Cap?
I guess what I'm actually saying is that it is wrong for some 42-year-olds to sleep with
all.
some 17-year-olds.
Listen, when you're a sensitive young man,
maybe not all of
when
them.
they can tell you're a sensitive young man
do.
at heart. Once they find out you published The Orchard Keeper, man, the floodgates, all the pretty horses just riding out those floodgates, man, for you.
I was thinking about this in terms of, the vibe shift angle. So, people talking about post this last election, did you hear they're putting the woke away? There's definitely a bit of a drift going on in terms of, like, people's sensitivity to stuff like this. And the fact they would run this the way they did, I feel like that's part of it. And there's no victim. Yeah,
it's very not.
It's like aggressively
it's very not hashtag me too.
Accusatory, like where there's a ton of material and angle for it, and instead it phrases this more as this Dante Beatrice angle where it's like the two of them are something exceptional.
he literally lists
Yeah.
like the Fitzgeralds, Nabokov. It's not Lolita.
Well, he does bring up. He could not resist.
He does
bringing up
eventually
Lolita.
bring up Lolita, but he was referring to
But
Nabokov's
I think
personal
it's part of
relationships.
this more
So.
feminine awareness of like a feminine. Like I was thinking of it in terms of like the hero's journey, and like in the female version of the heroine's journey. You know, the heroine's journey is about like, you know, the hero's journey is to prove your value.
Starts in a
men.
field in Afghanistan.
Yeah, but in the heroine's journey, she is, you know, helpless. You think of all my favorite YA books. You know, she's helpless, downtrodden, beaten, abusive parents, or whatever. But then she finds a bad boy, wins over the bad boy, and it's not enough to win over the bad boy. Like, part of the feminine drive, I'm an expert in this, trust me, she has to get fucked. She has to get fucked by the bad boy and, like, fertilized, or it doesn't count. Like, it's part of the feminine. Like, if she got, whisked away to Mexico by this guy and he didn't, and there was no penetration with diameter, like, I think it would have been she would have left feeling like, what's wrong with me? Like, come on, really?
Wait, penetrated with diameter?
Yeah.
Yeah, penetrate. He doesn't have a dick the width of a piece of pasta. Like she's gotta feel like she's
Yeah.
You know,
You gotta carry that weight.
you know, like she had a meal.
It's a burrito.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, not a little tosquito or whatever it's called.
No, I'm taking down notes. Like,
Taquito?
I thought you had to fuck her at a particular angle. There's one sensitive one that, you know, fuck your girl with one this neat trick, and you too can become a literary legend and get away with Ephebophilia.
Yeah. No, you get fucked with and without diameter, I've been told. But width is like a requirement. And I think so. But the reason I'm bringing this up is I feel that's part of this recognition of the female role, the female arc, in a way that's very un-Me Too, right? It's very not the goals that she should be having according to that paradigm, but it's being embraced here as this, like, it's just part of it. Like, this, like, you know, you're a 17-year-old runaway, you find a guy, you run away with him, you know, like, what the fuck else is going to happen? And it's, I don't know, there's an odd acceptance there I'm still wrestling with, that I feel is, like, the fact this is coming out now, it seems more than coincidental. Like, I feel like she might have been, well, she definitely was sitting on this for a while.
But the thing is, Vanity Fair 6 months ago would not if they did publish this piece, it would be an entirely different tone. Even the Vanity Fair of 6 months ago would absolutely... You know how many David Foster Waller hit pieces Vanity Fair has on that poor man? Mm-hmm. Like, every 6 months, there's a new DFW hate thread on Vanity Fair, or hate post, or hate article on DFW. But this is like peak kid. This is not even kids' gloves. Like, McCarthy goes completely unscathed. They don't mention him being... they tastefully mention him being a kind of Republican, or hinting that he's a Republican. And again, he hero worships her, and they don't do it because sometimes, with another example of this, where a man steals a lot from his girl or from his girl's experiences, this F. Scott Fitzgerald gets slandered a lot with this. Like, oh, he's not a good writer. All of his great work is just him stealing from Zelda's life. He would be nothing without Zelda, which. Certain here and there. I mean, for The Great Gatsby, yes, but afterwards, it would have been preferable if she just killed herself or was successful in killing herself. That way, he can work sort of out.
Unfortunately, yes, that's probably
that's
true.
objectively true. But with this case, they don't play that angle, which is very bizarre. There's this weird Cormac McCarthy like shield of like not being criticized in this, which is weird because apparently the Substack piece he wrote about Cormac McCarthy, he was critical. But I can see y'all can see the objective angles. Oh, he steals from the woman's experiences. He is exploiting her grief or exploiting her trauma. Oh, and literally exploiting her physically and also her life story. Like, you know all the journalist tactics that they would usually do, that Vanity Fair of all people would definitely do. But they don't do it to Cormac here, which is very bizarre. I don't know, because she requested that, hey, listen, I love this man. I'm not trying to do a Me Too hit piece. I'm not trying to be hit piece. I'm basically being forced to, because she says near the end, like, why did you come out for this? Because she says, I know how this looks. And she makes a joke about him being a groomer, that kind of thing. Because I believe Cormac literally said to her during his dying days, hey, listen, you know, you might want to write, you know, keep my letters I wrote to you. You might want to use it for writing material, because 2025 is coming around. I think he says literally, like, they're going to release all my work. They're going to release all my letters. the University of whatever. I forget what university it was. And how do universities work like that? Like, did he just why would he give them access to his writings to begin with?
Well, I assume it's just part of his estate. Like, it's when you're at that level of fame, I think they just plan ahead for shit like that, and it's just assume whether you want it or not, that stuff's going to be coming out in some form. So I think they just start planning for it. But on your point about the reporter himself, I want to highlight he's kind of like an independent Substacker. So I think there's two aspects. One, yes, I think she is like a moral person, and she like still has a great fondness for Cormac and wants to like honor his memory. So I think that was like probably a demand of her to do it. But two, as part of the quote unquote like deprofessionalization, kind of in a weird way, reprofessionalization of reporters, he's an independent Substacker. So he wants to have a good reputation. Like, he has to protect his reputation, and for someone that works with sources, writes respectfully, blah, blah, blah. So rather than just some hack shithead that has a BA in English and gets a job at BuzzFeed or whatever, and then churns out whatever they tell him to churn out, this guy kind of has a beat. I don't know if he's probably not making a ton of money. Hopefully he's making some, and this got him a nice little payday. But I think that's an interesting story of this too, of why this went through and was reported with like the dignity it was because of this changing media landscape. Like, I see this on many other websites too. They're relying more on Substackers as this sort of ad hoc writer.
I mean, it's also that, when you think of other situations where, Augusta could have gone to anyone. Obviously, any journalist or any person who produces any content related to literature would love to have done this interview, right? Mm-hmm. She could have gone on any podcast. She could come on
Gabe's Grab Bag.
Yeah, absolutely. Augusta, you want to come on the sidebar? You want to talk some stuff? You want to deal with some horny jokes?
No voice changer though.
We're real easy to get a hold of. She chose him for a reason, and probably because, like you said, she had some feeling about the way that he would handle things, and of course, there would probably be some willingness to be a little more flexible in the execution. But I did read some of his other things. I mean, I like new subscriber here, so I'm sub to his Substack. But it's a situation where he was selected for the total calculus of value that Augusta had to go through, right?
I mean, she had two biographers. They mentioned in the piece 2 biographers were hounding her, but she chose him because she liked his piece.
I'm sure there's no shortage.
Yeah,
right.
And what the bizarre thing is, not only is Bernay I'm not a Bernay bro. I do not subscribe to his subs piece. I didn't even read the piece in question. I only read the Vanity Fair piece.
So you want to say Bernay, even though
I legitimately did not know what Gabe was saying for a minute there. I was like, Bernay.
You want to go with Bernay, even though his Twitter handle is Barney's Rubble and his Substack is Barney's Rubble, and has a picture of his face crudely photoshopped over Barney Rubble's head, like you do on the internet. I'm not criticizing the shop job.
He does not know what Flintstones is.
Oh yeah, I watched those cigarette commercials where him and Fred share cigarettes together after work.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, I used to be known as Bam Bam actually back in the day, but anyway.
Oh God. Do not explain.
I won't. I'm leaving it tastefully vague. But where was I? Oh yeah. So the thing is, yes, he's not woke, or he's not like that kind. He doesn't come off that way, even in the piece itself. But the very fact that the editorial, the Vanity Fair, you do realize he still had to submit this to Vanity Fair. The editorial desk had to say, yeah, this is about right. Like, which is bizarre. Which I would say points to David's vibe shift thing. Like, they did not want to rock the boat with Cormac being a legend. I mean, to think about in the literary field, I mean, Jonathan Franzen is still trying to live down that whole Oprah situation that happened a long time ago. Right? Redditors still hate him for not wanting Oprah.
Dude.
Yeah?
Alice Munro fucking died, and then her daughter, like a month later, came out. This was in July. Came out and said that Alice Munro knew and did nothing, that her daughter was getting sexually abused.
Oh, wow.
Like, that happened in July of this year. So, I mean, Alice Munro, for people who don't know, please, if you are listening to this and you have not read an Alice Munro short story, go and read Alice Munro, the greatest Canadian author, and I will kill on that hill.
Second to Norm Macdonald.
So. Norm Macdonald said she was the greatest Canadian author.
Well, that's the joke. He was this big. That's his fake modesty. That's him pretending to be a midwit.
Oh my god.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go on.
Nope, you were making a point. Pop off.
No, my point is that you were saying that the whole shitting on a dead author thing is not done, is not done anymore. But there's this other major author who died, immediately gets shit on.
Well, it's not that it's not done. It's more that this would creep through the way it did. I think it just shows a changing power dynamic between, like, yeah, definitely she is a special case in terms of like her level of what she can command, right? But the fact that she can make them like take this Substack post and not force some kind of editorial line on it, and they'll still take it and run it. I think it's a sign of, Substack army, let's go. Just that there's a more willingness to accept that and not force some kind of, or even like a quote underneath it, or a little star asterisk underneath, like, we don't stand by, some of this, or this might be problematic. I feel like 3 or 4 years ago that would be necessary.
There would absolutely have been some sort of, quote unquote contextualization that they added that was incredibly gay and cringe. And there is another, there is the additional angle of legacy media versus new media, which, we're a tiny sliver in the paw of a mouse portion of new media. But, Vincenzo Barney getting this article published in Vanity Fair is, while the rest of his output, and I see that he does have some publications in like LA Review of Books and so forth, but the majority of his output appearing to be on Substack, and getting this major piece, huge scoop, right? Fuck! I completely lost my train of thought.
Who wasn't a cuckold?
Because
Cormac McCarthy.
He was definitely not.
Yeah, this guy had women all around. He burning through wives, kids he never mentioned. That was the one thing that broke them up. Apparently, he didn't let her know he had a kid at home and a wife.
That was her age, by the way.
Well, no, he had a kid he had no relationship with, right? And an ex-wife, in addition to a wife with whom he never had kids. The kid that he was, the wife that he was with when he met her
was not the mother.
Annie. They never had children.
Yep.
Yeah.
McCarthy had a child with his first wife and his third wife.
But are his marriages tied to book releases? Because there's another interesting Hemingway parallel. That, there's a great quote by Fitzgerald that says Ham needs a new wife for each novel. Like, he basically uses them as book fuel for each novel. Basically, Sun Also Rises. Almost each of his big novels are tied to a new wife, basically.
Yeah.
Was that a case with Cormac?
No, he extended
Well,
it
no,
by
'cause he
alpha
only had
widowing
3
her.
wives.
Yeah, so he was like a spider that would, or he was like a mosquito. He'd come back to like suck the blood a little bit every night because he alpha widowed her. Specifically, he proposed twice and then he cucked her out once because she's like, "Oh, let's get married at this Catholic church," and he's like, "Oh, it says here you have to be a Catholic to get married in that Catholic church. I just can't do it. I just can't do
No,
it."
you have to go to Catholic confession, and he wouldn't confess.
Yeah. And I forget the second one, but he had a second, near miss, but then he got cold feet before. So, that's the only thing I think that makes him, in my estimation, like truly a bad guy in this. Like I said, the heroine's journey, she, meets the guy, she wins him over with her beauty and charm, gets fucked with diameter, is living her best life in Mexico. But the fact he never put a ring on it, that's what spoils it. It's like,
Agreed.
if he had done the right thing, that's why they call it doing the right thing. If he had, at the end of the day, if he had pulled the trigger on one of those marriages, I think he would have been a good guy. But it does lower my estimation of him that he would back out twice.
Yeah, you can pick the right fruit, but you gotta throw it into the mulch afterwards. You can't throw it into the garbage bin. You gotta feed the garden again, basically.
Yeah.
You need to do it with her. And well, it's another aspect. A friend of the show mentioned this. Lewis Wolston mentioned this. That there's no such thing as a volcel author. Almost all of the great authors have at least mistresses or some, sexually sensitive men. There's incel authors, but there's no volcel authors. Even St. Augustine had to go through the pussy carousel at least once or twice before he wrote his Confessions.
Pussy carousel.
Yeah, I stole that from the podcast. I couldn't think of anything in the moment.
Pussy House of Mirrors, maybe?
No,
I don't know.
The pussy playpen. The pussy playpen. The pussy playpen.
Okay. Not comfortable
the
with
pussy
the
ball
playpen.
pit.
The ball. What is that? Are you comfortable with the ball pit?
Yeah, yeah. Too many other balls.
I feel like the ball pit has to be the pussy
The
ball
pussy.
the femboy ball pit. That's where the femboys go. But
They work at Femboy Hooters.
but
It has a play place.
honestly, because it reveals a crack. The biggest thing, because remember, like right now, Cormac McCarthy is like the face of lit bro literature, the quote unquote lit bro fiction. You know what I mean? He is the face of masculine fiction. And one of the biggest, I guess, subtle attacks on his character is that he relied so much on this one woman. Basically, the entire Borders trilogy is reliant on her. His last 2 books are basically her as the protagonist, for all intents and purposes.
Allegedly. Yeah.
But cooperated by other sources. Like, I thought this was bullshit as soon as I saw the headline. Oh, hold on, excuse me.
Female like egoism. I had the same first, gut reaction, and it definitely was tempered by the quotes he was pulling and some of the examples. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. My gut reaction was the same. I thought this was going to be a hit piece. Like, oh my god, he had a 16-year-old mistress, and as soon as the body's not even, I guess the body is cold. It probably is slightly molting as we speak, but basically the entire time I had my guard up. And that's what made this piece so interesting to read, is that, she has a profound respect for him and all these things, but the subtle layer is that he relied on her. There's a certain level of Mary Sue worship, because he does treat her like a Mary Sue, basically. He's basically fanboying over this one woman the entire time. Like, oh, she teaches him how to shoot guns. She knows how to ride all the horses. She's like a horse master. She's super funny and confident and likable, and she can quote Henry V off of memory. Like, he basically treats her like a Mary Sue. Like, the journo is basically worshiping the ground this woman walks on. It's hero worship, basically. And maybe certainly rightfully so to a certain degree. But there is an element of, like, this great lit bro author needed this woman to write all his best work. And if it wasn't for this woman, he would have nothing. Which is a subtle kind of endpoint of all this, is that he needed her more than she needed him. Do y'all get that vibe from this or no?
Well, yeah, and I think that is a subtext, for sure.
Especially his last book.
I mean, from the quotes that she provided, seems like she is really trying to undercut that. It seems very she is making the statement that it was like really highly mutual. right? In terms of the fulfillment that the fulfillment and inspiration they provided to each other. But I mean that doesn't mean that the subtext is.
And
not
Cormac
there,
does get one
right?
Chad line when she does complain about it in All the Pretty Horses. She's like, "Well, I felt very weird about you using my trauma," and of course Cormac says, "Well, honey, I am a writer, so that's kind of just how it is." And he's like, okay, "Well, can you at least stop killing me off every single time?"
He's like, "No,
Absolutely not."
I guarantee that's the Chud move. That's the peak Chud move. This bitch broke my heart. I'm gonna kill her in my next novel. And every time she said, I'm gonna kill you off every single time until you marry me, bitch." That was very sensitive young man core.
I thought it was pretty balanced. Like, it definitely, to your point, Cap, like in her quote, she's definitely saying like it was a mutual relationship. It sounds like she felt a little exploited by his incorporating her into the stories in some of the ways he did, but it seems like it never crossed a line. It seems really like it was his move to Santa Fe and like his like city slickerification that kind of made her go cold on him. But I don't think it, it kind of places him, even at the beginning of the article, in a tradition of men having these like great female muses. And so in that way, I don't think it's overly aggressive towards him, but this probably will be something in the quiver of the soy jacks of the world, of the soy boys of the world, whenever, because there is a really strong, not even just on like the quote unquote chuddy side, but there is like the dude bro lit world out there that is like all McCarthy pilled dudes.
Cormac McCarthy pilled.
McCarthy pilled Groiper.
Corn dogs.
Meridian Maxers.
I don't know how they're going to handle this. Like, I guess that's a question. Like, what is going to be the long-term consequence? Will this change anyone's opinion on anything, or is it just going to be an interesting footnote?
Will this create a new renaissance in the age of consent discussion?
Yeah. Will liberals read it now? Will they, oh, this is inspired by a woman and not Samuel Chamberlain?
Oh my God.
I'm 100% down for canceling McCarthy if we can bring back Samuel Chamberlain. If we can actually point our glasses up and like, actually, Samuel Chamberlain's My Confession is such a better book than Blood Meridian.
It actually is, though.
And also, what do you think? I noticed this, by the way. It seems to be American male authors tend to rely on their women a lot. Hemingway, Fitch, Corncob. I can't think of many European authors or non-American authors that rely on the females in their lives, other than obviously Dante.
Nabokov, Joyce.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
Joyce.
A lot of them.
I don't think Joyce relied on Nora necessarily, especially with Ulysses.
Bruh.
He was too much of a prose fag. He was too much of a technical author. He was extremely a technical guy. Obviously Nora inspires Ulysses overall, but I don't think it was emotional. He was too much trying to flex, oh, how clever I am. He was very much a meta author. He was a stylist.
There's something about the whole muse concept I find very toxic, dumb. Something about it really triggers me, where it's just like this like female egoism that's like, oh, it's all, it wouldn't happen without me. It's like, well, what if he just married someone else? It's with the same guy. If he just loved someone else, would he have like credited them at the start of the book? Maybe. You ever think about that? Sweaty. But obviously there is like a, there's a case there. And like in this Corncob example, like he really, it sounds like a lot of his horse wisdom, his terminology, he did pull a lot of stuff from her. So there definitely is an element there. I get antsy when people try to steal credit from anyone's actual work that they did and give it to a woman, in particular, and say it's because of her. Like, I think if she wasn't there, Corncob would still have written all these books. They probably would have had just a little different flavor. And who knows, maybe that flavor would have made the difference in his popularity.
But the thing is, the author does point almost like verbatim chunks of like the Borders trilogy, where it basically is almost a one-for-one for this woman, for Augusta. Like the stories of these novels are almost one-for-one her life story.
Well,
yeah, but that's a story that's being told. I'm just saying and I'm not saying that this story is fake, because there are like some circumstantial things that have been delivered here that, make it seem like we should go in with an open mind. But these are some pretty big claims.
Well, but the letters do exist.
Right.
Like, he's not like she didn't forge these letters. We have to assume that these letters are real.
Yeah, no,
Well,
it's a romance.
I mean, we don't. It's more like trust but verify. Like I'll be bought into this more when the rest of McCarthy's letters come out. If there's a long series of letters that confirm the other side of this relationship, then yeah, I mean, who could deny, right?
True. Once the archive comes up, because the thing is, he could do like probably his fingerprints are probably still on the letters. 1, 2. I mean, or handwriting comparisons.
No, I mean, I'm getting getting a bunch of fake letters from and to McCarthy into his archive would require a lot more than it would to what
Yeah,
end,
that's what I'm saying.
right?
We have to
my
assume
opinion.
these are. I'm actually just straight up assuming this is true.
Yeah. No, I am too. And assuming it all is, even then, it's like some of the comparisons, like he wrote a letter where he says, oh, I really want to put my head on your lap or whatever. And then in one of his books, and again, this guy is like 800,000 plus words or whatever, published fiction. And there's a scene where a guy like puts a head on a lap. It's like, you can find that kind of serendipity very easily. And some of it maybe was loosely inspired, but I think it's very easy to make these sort of just so stories where it's like, here I have a letter, I can search, I can find a quote that is a close enough scene to something he mentioned because he's talking to this girl about romance and his books have romance, and there's only so much vocabulary there. Yeah, but I'm not trying to take anything away from her. I think it was real. I think he got it. I think he got that.
Well, there's one big
situation.
There's one big discrepancy when she says he never shot a gun, which is bizarre because when she tells a backstory about him, he wants to see how well she shoots. So she does the Good Spring starter tutorial mission where he sets up the bottles for her.
Yeah,
she shoots the bottles. It basically that was literally the scene in my head. And she's, well, damn, girl, you sure can shoot. Like he says something along those lines. Yet again, he has a very quiet. Also, the author claims that it's McCarthyian. The words drinker and shiner, aka black eye. Apparently, these are McCarthyian words. Apparently, the words drinker and shiner have never been coined before Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah, that's like the serendipity of is Southwestern. Like we're talking about Southwestern culture. This guy wrote Southwestern culture. He was dating someone who was of Southwestern culture, and it's like, okay, so there's gonna be crossover, bleed over there naturally.
No, like the author has never met like a Southern person before, so every time it's like you never see a black person before, so you think all of them are like Tyler the Creator or something. He has never met a Southern before. Cormac McCarthy is like the token Southern person he knows, so he just thinks he invented the terms drinker and shiner, which I found very amusing.
So I'm online. I'm seeing some McCarthy bros that aren't handling this so well.
Oh, I can't wait to see the lit threads on this.
Yeah.
But notice, when I mentioned the whole shooting thing is he came strapped. She does notice he owns guns because he says he pulls out of his not out of his holster. He says he pulled it out of his holster, his own gun, and gave it to her. So that implies he's had guns before he met her. Obviously, I highly doubt he never shot a gun. I just think she implied that he never shot a gun with her. Because he was too busy living the dream of ever since a young man and being with his manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah.
Okay. I can definitely buy horses. I can definitely see him not being a horse rider though. And I guess he, as a writer, literally he publishes his shitty first novel, Orchard Keeper. It's a Faulkner ripoff. He's sitting by the pool, and
have you read it, Gabe?
Everyone knows it. I watched the Art of Darkness episode on it.
Watch YouTube. Yeah, watch a YouTube summary.
No. I watched a Patreon summary of Art of Darkness.
Wow. Elite.
tasteful elite human capital, art of darkness.
See, I haven't read The Orchard Keeper, but I'm glad that it's three people who haven't read The Orchard Keeper. Two of which are ready to say that it's not well regarded among the McCarthy novels, and one who's willing to say that it's shit, not having read it at all.
It's a slapdash parody of the Corn Cob Chronicles of Faulkner. All right.
So true.
Amazing. So true, I assume.
Yeah, I have to assume. I'm Googling this right now, and I think you're right.
Yes. So true, I assume, without qualification or research.
But do you know how much of an ego boost that is? Because it showed like shit. He bought it off a bargain bin.
It didn't happen. It didn't fucking happen. He picked her up at the pool. He was hitting on her, dude. That's what really happened. She's spinning a yarn about, I saw his picture on the thing. It's like, no, this guy was cruising and he saw a 16-year-old girl and he got things cooking.
No,
that's the real story.
No, I'm a sensitive young romantic.
I don't know about
Base
that.
cap.
You think she
no
walked
guy
up to
no
him?
guy who has that
You think it's
no guy who
16-year-old?
has that no guy who is spitting that level of game is gonna have. All right, now look, if we get like several more and we're like, and here's the chick that he was with for 50 years who inspired all these other characters. Like, here's what's his face from No Country for Old Men, and here's Judge Holden. Boo, she was not a looker.
How are you guys claiming they met? You think she?
No.
Was?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, based on the length of this relationship and the apparent, him apparently not having a bunch of other of these conquests, I think he probably didn't just he didn't get inspired and bag a hot 16-year-old.
Yeah, she was his one-nightis. Because if he was a cruiser, if he was a true eroticus predatore, filled with real on the hunt, Holden style, for young, ripe applesauce pussy like this, he would easily get another mistress, another 5 mistresses, basically. But he doesn't. There's not even for hedonistic stress relief sex. No, he wants her. He tries to marry her twice. Even when he gets money, after he
backs out.
Yeah, he gets the McCarthy grant. Once he gets loaded, he could have a whole trail of 16-year-old pussy if he wanted to, but he doesn't. He wants her because she's the Zoomer equivalent of this. You're hanging out in your local suburban park.
Did you say
what?
Did you say McCarthy grant?
Yeah, MacArthur, right? MacArthur, I think is a.
Yeah. I thought you said McCarthy. Okay, sorry.
Total. By the way, total Celt death. Croatians have done more for Western civilization and inventions. More inventions have happened in Croatia than the entirety of Ireland. By the way, fact checked actually by true HBD patriots. Anyway, where was I? Yeah. So imagine if the Zoomer equivalent of this is basically you're hanging out in your local suburban park, and hot goth emo girl comes up to you. It's like, hey, did you write this? And she shows you your Morrowind fan fiction you wrote. And he's like, I really like this. Okay, do you want to do some role playing together on Discord sometime? That's basically the 1970s dude bro version of that. Basically, instead of the emo goth girl Midwest emo goth girl who's into your Morrowind fan fiction, it's 1970s tomboy hippie girl who drive you down to Mexico with her, and she really really likes your Faulkner fan fiction. That's literally he has his.
She never read it before she met him. That's my. I'm positive.
Yeah,
she never read his shit.
She bought it.
She met
him. She says she bought it after meeting him. Right? She bought.
No. She says she had it before she met him. That's how she knew who he was. She saw his picture, according to her. Again, that was fact checked by true McCarthy patriots, Aaron Gwynn. That there was no picture on the back of that book. And so that's why I keep sticking on this point. I don't want to beat it to a dead horse, but I'm like, I don't buy her intro story in the least. I don't necessarily know he was being a slimeball about it, or they just bumped into each other and it hit off. But that would be my area of inquiry. for anyone that wants to do some sleuthing on
Listen,
this.
it's too romantic not to be. I wanted to be true so bad because think from MacArthur's standpoint, like 30-year-old sensitive young man, literally a hot piece of ads comes to you, holds your book, your shitty book, even by your own standards, you admitted shit because it's sold like shit, and like, oh hey, you wrote this? Like, it's nothing but up from here. It's nothing from up from there. I can see why he clung to her so bad because it's like if you wrote this in a like if you like, do you remember the movie American Beauty?
Yeah.
Like, that alone was pretty cringe at that point. But imagine a version, like, it's basically Deus Ex Machina. It's Deus Ex young girl. You have a boomer in his midlife crisis. I think he's 40, right? He's 40 at this time. Midlife crisis. He's down on his luck. His novels are going well. Hot piece of fresh ass comes to him, says, I saw you cross the pool and I really like your style. And boom. A career upswing. It's pussy ex machina, basically. It literally is manic pixie dream girl from the skies, saves you in your career, and basically gives you nothing but golden tickets for the rest of your life. It's too perfect, and I can buy that because Cormac McCarthy is a strangely very lucky fellow. If you read his biography or you listen to his biography, he gets nothing but constantly, like, he has a luck skill like 100 basically. Because he roves the American plains. He's going from town to town. He's like hipster homeless in like New Orleans. Like he very much is a guy who has a naturally high luck stat, basically, and he has multiple second chances, multiple times throughout. So it's too perfectly romantic not to believe. In my heart of hearts, as a sensitive young man, I want to believe the pool story.
Yeah, and to go with the boomer meme you were doing earlier, they say in here they'd go town to town and just like open a bunch of fucking credit cards or bank accounts and just like run up debt and then just bounce. Yeah, the good old days.
Super believable.
Are you actually able to do that? Is that
in
well?
the 1970s? I don't know.
Yeah, not now, but yeah, yes, it is possible to commit fraud.
Are you telling me that the boomers pulled up the ladder so the younger generations can't create generational wealth?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you know what you can do? You can go to a bank and you can open a checking account with $500, and then you can write checks that bounce, and then leave. But it's called fraud.
Oh, it's a
crime.
like even a money glitch.
Yeah, I think that went viral on TikTok recently. For for some foundational Americans, and I'm sure that if it wasn't just like a completely fabricated thing, then some folks are going to prison or more likely paying restitution.
They patched the exploit basically.
Yeah. Anything else on Cormac? Are we good on this? Have we molested this child?
All right. I just want to go on the record. There is a photo of Augusta in the article as a woman in her 60s, and she looks like she is 15 years younger than her stated age. She
just
is,
imagine back then.
I'm just saying she was probably a stone fox, a stone fox back in the day. I mean, a woman in her 60s, she's still, arguably a woman.
Oh, she's absolutely would. She's like that. She's got that weird. You can tell she's Finnish. Yeah, you can tell like she has some weird Baltic DNA because of like the elven cheekbone she has. Like she literally does like have elven like phrenology skull structure, and I said she looks like either 45 or 48 actually, like a very youthful, spry 48, and I think she definitely would. I would her basically. She's not mommy. She doesn't give mommy energy, but she gives like really fun when she's drunk auntie energy. I would want to be molested by her if she was my aunt.
Jesus Christ!
Like a cowboy OC cowgirl auntie.
I know what's going on the end card. All right.
Well, we're already at the end, so won't be long to hear that again.
You just put that one on loop. Yeah.
Well, if we're ending, I would like to pose. If a question's not to y'all, if you want to end this, at least pose it to the audience. Sorry, if you want to pose it to the audience, I would like for everyone to note: is it possible for a truly voluntary celibate man to write great fiction without relying on a muse or a woman? Because I think this broaches that very uncomfortable topic and kind of reveals even the most supposedly stone cold of them all, McCarthy, had to rely on a woman for his work. At least as a muse. Like, a man cannot be his own muse, apparently. He cannot rely on his own imagination. Fortuna and divination and Athena all must be in your... Like, the reason why the Greeks sang to the muses, right? All the great, from Virgil, Homer, all of them inculcate the image of the muse right from the beginning of the Homeric poems or the Homeric epics. So the question...
It's invocation of
invocation. Thank you very much. All of them invoke the imagery of the muse. So it's very uncomfortable chthonic element. It sucks that Ephebophilia is basically dead. Well, for all intents and purposes, dead because she is not publishing any content. Because I would love to hear her opinion on this, basically. Because it's true, the man needs the chthonic energy either to rebel against or to be inspired from, in order to genuinely create something. And the chthonic mother, the mist of the chthonic, always is in our atmosphere. And even someone who's supposedly stone cold or has a very stone cold reputation, even he in the background had to rely on this chthonic feminine influence throughout all of his work. Apparently even Blood Meridian was influenced partly by this woman, by the way. Even his most chuddy, masculine novel even had some influence by this woman.
My answer's not sexy. I think... I love women. I should preface with that. But I think women are master shapeshifters and master credit absorbers. And so people create things, and men and women create fantastic things. But whenever there's a great man and he creates an amazing thing, for some reason there's this need to divide the credit or find the secret influence that made it happen. And I think it's just very easy to create stories about the secret origins, and it's kind of fun. It's fun to theory craft about whether another person inspired certain aspects, but to assign them this like muse position, it does happen. Like, some people do have that kind of, there's a singular person they're obsessed with. Absolutely has happened in history. Like the Dante example, to go back to that, is like an example of that, where like he admits that's the obsession he has. Yeah. And his was like specifically like unrequited, like because she was dead, and like it never could have been, and never was. But I find this Cormac one, there's some inspiration for sure, but the muse term, I don't know. I'm allergic to it. I find there's something about, it just feels like it's stealing glory from someone. I'm not a huge Cormac head.
Stolen valor.
It's a stolen valor thing.
Stolen vril.
Be my...
Stolen artistic vril.
Yes. I'm calling stolen vril.
Okay, well, I'll pose this as the final question. All right. Can y'all, as y'all's final statement, either of y'all name a single author from the last 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 years that did not have a one-itis influence to at least any detectable degree? Of note.
Well, I mean, does it have to be like a certain
How would I
kind?
know?
Yeah, like I mean, there's many writers that I don't think have a one-itis. So they have to be like a certain flavor, like Stephen King. I don't think he has a one-itis. Like, he's big. Brandon Sanderson, King of Kings, does not have one-itis. He loves having sex with his wife, as you say, Gabe. He has that phenotype.
Oh, that's that's what happened in monogamous fiction. The greatest monogamous fiction author is the best you can get in a monogamous relationship is Brandon Sanderson. If you truly want to level up as an author, you have to be a tasteful young mistress enjoyer. Yeah,
I mean, most of the people we've covered, I don't think, are muse people.
Oh, true. Chamberlain. Another reason why Chamberlain's work is dedicated entirely to himself. He goes through the hose. Love if his life gets chopped up into pieces. On to the next one. I'll just name one of the kids after her. Beta male Cormac McCarthy is still simping for his one-itis all the way to his dying death.
Oh, that's so true. Should I marry her? Should I not marry her? Bro, you're 60 years old. Shouldn't you figure this out? Meanwhile, 70-year-old Chamberlain was like, what? He was the aggressor. He was what's the name for the spirit of
erotic?
Sexual?
He is definitely the eroticus preditore.
Yeah.
He was the white man with fangs. He was Caramel Jack, which was the nickname he had. Like, he was sweet, he was sour, he was saucy. He was cutting through hose, cutting through greasers. He absolutely his version of this. He's like, okay, bitch, you don't want to marry me? Fuck you. I'll just marry my hot lolly daughter after you.
And he went younger too. She was 14, right?
Yes, he doubled down.
Damn.
I was get a younger version of you.
Yet again, yeah. McCarthy is just a pale imitation.
Although it all seems to happen in Mexico, doesn't it? It all seems to happen in Mexico.
Are you calling Chamberlain a liar, Capitalismo?
No. I'm just saying maybe it's something about the latitude.
Something in the water.
Chamber Chads stay winning. McTroons forever stay seething. He's the last great American hepophile.